Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Treasures Galore. I wanted to do a mini series going over John Collins Black's treasure box, the Hobnail treasure, or the Forrest Fenn box. I am going to go over, there's a few things in this small chapter that kind of directly references some Forrest Fenn things that some searchers who weren't involved in the Fenn search may not know. Now, I'm going over the premises of anything mentioned in this chapter is fair game. Now, I know JCB says that you don't need to know Forrest Fenn's poem, and Fenn searchers necessarily don't have an edge over non Fenn searchers. But there are a few things mentioned in this chapter that maybe could lead one to his box. And the first part that I want to go over is on page 205. So, towards the tail end of page 205, he says, I read Forrest online Q&As and other books he had mentioned in his memoir. It was a blast. Now, do these other books hold possibly clues that helped JCB form his solve for the Fenn hunt? Possibly. And if you weren't a Fenn searcher and didn't read his memoir, you possibly could go online and research it. But I am just going to go over real quick the books that were mentioned in The Thrill of the Chase, because JCB read them and he possibly could have used something in those books to form his solve. Find his Where Warm Waters Halt, Heavy Loads, Water High, who knows? I know that I personally bought all of these books and more that were mentioned in The Thrill of the Chase and subsequent books like Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While. So, the books mentioned in The Thrill of the Chase, like I said, I don't know if they have hints or clues, but I'm going to go over them real quick. So, the first book that he mentions is titled 80, An American Souvenir by Eric Salone. Now, Eric Salone was a really good friend of Forrest Fenn's, and Forrest Fenn mentions this book, how he was talking to him, and he thought it'd be funny to title a book called 80 and then die shortly after, because Eric Salone died, I think it was a couple weeks after his 80th birthday. He was actually, I believe he was in New York, maybe wrong on that, but he was waiting at a stoplight for the light to change, and I believe he had a heart attack. And that was a big reason why Forrest Fenn hid the chest around 79 or 80 years old, because of what happened to Eric Salone. Okay, so the next book that he mentions, so in The Thrill of the Chase, the beginning, Forrest Fenn mentions going into a bookstore and reading these different books that were considered greats by these college professors. It kind of inspired him that, he could possibly write a book. He could write his memoir, because these things are considered classic literature. He could do better. So he mentions For Whom the Bell Tolls and also The Great Gatsby. And then I think I actually skipped one. So here's the next one that he mentions that's possibly could be a clue to where JCB hid his treasure chest. And I know this is actually a popular solve that I've seen from non-Fenn searchers too, so maybe this will give someone an edge finding the box. So in The Thrill of the Chase on page 11, actually, so Forrest Fenn is in this bookstore, right? And he's talking about The Great Gatsby and For Whom the Bell Tolls, and he says, finally, I tossed those beauties in the trash basket under my desk and looked away. If Robert Redford had ever written anything, he probably could have done it better than the guy who wrote that Gatsby book. So, you do a little research, and Robert Redford actually did write a book called The Outlaw Trail, A Journey Through Time. Now, the interesting part of this book that could tie into a solve is that the Outlaw Trail actually goes through Brown's Park. Home of Brown, where once was Brown. Now, the interesting thing about this is it actually, on Wikipedia, actually mentions Robert Redford, and the earliest known reference to Brown's Park was in 1650, and it was a trapper by the name of Baptiste. I'm not even going to pronounce that name, but he had an alias called Baptiste Brown, and that's how Brown's Park, or originally Brown's Hole, was named. Where once was Brown? Possibly. So this is located in very northwestern Colorado, very southern Wyoming. Actually very close to me. Dinosaur National Monument. Made news because there was a death that happened in this area, and one of my friends was actually on the search and rescue team. So, interesting. Could it be a hint? Could it be a clue? JC mentions the book Forrest Fenn mentions, and he indirectly mentions the Outlaw Trail. Okay, so the next book that he mentions actually is, I didn't skip it, The Catcher in the Rye. And Forrest Fenn calls this his, I don't even know how you would say it, unofficial autobiography. He says it's exactly his life. The names and people are different, the places are different, but it's his life, which is really weird if you read this book. What I thought was interesting too, I was a big Yellowstone searcher. I guess it was clarified. JCB did eliminate Yellowstone, which I think is really interesting. And I kind of want to write to his media team. He did the interview with his friend on the podcast, American Treasure, Dave Colonna, right? And JCB says, I want my solve to be the effing book where no one has to listen to me, right? And then he is on the podcast with Jam, the YouTube channel, Treasure Hunt with Us. And he's saying he's not going to eliminate national parks, not saying it's there, but not saying it's not going to eliminate anything. And then he goes on this weird kind of law podcast about lands and stuff, and he eliminates Yellowstone. So, what is it, JCB? Is the solve going to be the effing book, or are you going to keep dropping these little tiny things, eliminating things that, people are going to have to watch these little podcasts and YouTube channels to actually get an edge to find out where it's at? Kind of bothered me a little bit that it happened like that, and there wasn't like a press release or an email sent out saying, hey guys, letting you know, yes, Yellowstone has been eliminated. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a complainer. Okay, so Catcher in the Rye. I think I was mentioning Yellowstone was brought up in this book. But anyways, moving on. Forrest Fenn does mention Kismet a little bit, but I'm going to skip past that and go to the next one, called Journal of a Trapper by Osborne Russell. Kind of hard to read. It is a journal. Very, very interesting read, though. And a lot of it has to do kind of where Quake Lake, Hebgen Lake is up in Montana, West Yellowstone area. How he was attacked by Indians, and it's a really interesting book. So another one, Yellowstone, right? Next book. And I apologize if I missed anything. It's been such a long time. Once the treasure was found, I haven't even picked up the book since, I don't know, yesterday when I started thinking about doing this video. So if I missed a book in there, I apologize. I think this is it, though. So the last book that he mentions is Flywater. Two versions. One was in 1994, and one was in, I believe, 2010. So Forrest Fenn says it was a long forgotten book on his shelf, so Pretty sure it's the January 1st, 1994 edition. And like in my previous video, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Talks about Yellowstone a lot. Obviously, it talks about some other places in Colorado and like the Black Canyon, which is close to where I live. But Yellowstone, Forrest Fenn says it shows a lot of places that he fished as a kid. So just thinking about JCB solve, where did he think Forrest Fenn hid his treasure? I know people had solves in all 4 search states, but it was so blatantly obvious that Forrest Fenn hid it somewhere up near Yellowstone. Not necessarily in the park, but somewhere up north, that I just have a hard time believing someone dedicated to the Forrest Fenn search would have been searching in Colorado or New Mexico. And I say that it was so obvious because there was this quote by Forrest Fenn, and he was talking about his special place where he hid the treasure. And he said, I cannot give you a timeline when this spot became special or he saw it, because that would give you too big of a clue that I don't want to reveal. That statement by Forrest Fenn pretty much told every single person that used a little common sense that it was in Yellowstone. And I'm going to explain that. He went to Yellowstone when he was a kid. He didn't spend time in New Mexico or Colorado as a kid. He did when he was an adult. He was able to travel to all 4 search states as an adult, but not as a kid. It was only Yellowstone. Yellowstone, Yellowstone, Yellowstone. So if he would have said this special place was an adult, it could have been Yellowstone, could have been Colorado, could have been northern New Mexico, could have been anywhere. But he can't reveal when it was because it would give too much. Well, obviously it was a kid, because that would definitely give away that it was Yellowstone. Just a little bit of common sense and maybe critical thinking, I don't know. But to me, the Forrest Fenn chest was obviously up north. And so I have a hard time as a there's treasure inside searcher looking anywhere else but Wyoming, northern Wyoming, or Montana. I really do. Now, in the podcast, or whatever you want to call it, where he eliminates Yellowstone, he did say he saw Yellowstone for the first time while searching for the Fenn chest, which, to my knowledge, is the only place that JCB said or referenced a place that he saw while he was searching. So we do know for a fact JCB was in that area searching for the Fenn chest. So I believe this box is hidden up north. It's not in Yellowstone Park. And to be honest with you, at first I thought it was in Yellowstone Park, but just from all the legal issues and everything that went on with Jack and the ending and the park and how they handled the spot, the park rangers knew where it was, or, for my conspiracy Forrest Fenn searchers, supposedly where it was hidden. They wanted to keep it a secret because they didn't want all the foot traffic, and I think they did an environmental study and how it would impact the environment and all this. Like, they got overboard. And I do not think JCB wanted any a part of that. I think he wanted to take the good from the Fenn hunt and leave the bad. So it does make sense that he wouldn't hide it in Yellowstone, but doesn't mean that it's not somewhere close to Yellowstone. Maybe right outside of Yellowstone Park. A popular where warm waters halt was the Yellowstone boundary. So, possibly, maybe that's it. I don't know. But I just wanted to make this video real quick, put it out there for the non-Fenn searchers. Those were the books that were mentioned. JCB mentions reading those books, so I don't think you can count them out. I don't necessarily think you have to buy them, but maybe there's something in there that could possibly help you. Like if you're a Browns Park searcher, could be a possibly big clue for you. I know there's some people looking in that area. So just wanted to put that out there, guys. Make a video, trying to get more involved, putting some content out. So I'll be continuing this, going over a little bit of Forrest Fenn stuff, my thoughts on the box, maybe going through the chapter a little bit more deeper. I'm watching these YouTube channels, and they're doing, chapter analysis, and they kind of just give a general overview and then maybe pick a few things out. And I like to read it deeper, slower, line by line, seeing anything that might catch up. And that's how my mind works. So when I read the Forrest Fenn book, I thought a lot more things were hints. So that might be either confirmation bias or me reading too much into the book. But there were a few things in The Thrill of the Chase that I'm still convinced that were hints, aberrations that lived out on the edge, if you will, that Cynthia didn't mention and maybe Forrest Fenn didn't mention, but I'm almost positive they are. And I'll give you an example. For the Forrest Fenn searchers, anyone who watched my videos, kept up with them, there was the Stout-Hearted Men chapter, and he mentioned falling twice while trying to get through the dumb barbed wire fence. Now, the Forrest Fenn poem, Terry Scant with Marvel Gaze, everyone thought it was a beautiful place, this and that. If you really break down the words and use some common sense, it means get the hell out of there. Forrest Fenn said he hid it in a place where not people usually don't go. So if it's places where people don't go and you have to get the hell out of there, then it's somewhere you're not supposed to be. Yellowstone makes sense. He wasn't supposed to hit a treasure there, hide a treasure there, right? So he wanted you to get out of there. To me, I took it, he hit it somewhere where it wasn't supposed to. You had to cross a barbed wire fence. I took it literal. The falling twice, Cynthia said that he fell down twice, once on a rock and then once on a deadfall. So I think that was a hint of him falling twice, or a little ode to his experience hiding the treasure, a little aberration that lived out on the edge. And I took it literal, barbed wire fence. So I'm trying not to do it with this book. Reading into it, I've caught a lot of things, but I'm trying to not get so caught up in it, if that makes sense. So anyways, just a little food for thought. But be doing more of these, going over the Fenn box. I was a Fenn searcher, and the reason that I'm stuck on the Fenn box is pretty much really want to read the autobiography, but I live in Colorado, so it's the closest box to me. And I'm not the kind of guy that would buy a plane ticket and go searching unless I was really, really confident. And with the Fenn chase, I can't tell you how many boots on the ground I went on and how many times I told my wife, like, I figured it out. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. And I would go and figure out a hotel. Sometimes I slept in my car and I'd go search, wouldn't find it, and come back. So I'm a little more hesitant this time. And I have not been boots on the ground for the Fenn box. I believe I know the general area, but I think I know some clues, found some stuff, but not confident enough to drive out there and go search. So I work in the Rocky Mountains and I get it all the time, so I enjoy the outdoors enough. So anyways, alright, so next video will be on the Fenn box, and I will see you guys in the next episode.